You're listening to Active Vegetarian, episode 73. Hello and welcome, friends. Thank you for joining us once again and listening and possibly watching. And so for any listeners out there, yes, we said watching because now we have this on video. We have our podcast. We're also going to post them on videos to YouTube, to Vimeo, and I think iTunes. We'll try out iTunes. Possibly we can do it there as well. And it's just to create more of that connection. Now you can actually see our voices and who it belongs to if you haven't picked up that the accent belongs to Zuzana over here. But now you can see us. It's just a better way to connect with you. And yeah, we think there's power in that. So that's why we started to do some videos as well.
So this is Nikki and I'm Zuzana. And we are here today to talk to you about how to smoothly transition to a plant-based lifestyle.
A big topic because it is everywhere now. It's a great time to come out with this because plant-based eating and the whole veganism, that shift is happening, and it's happening quite fast, which is incredible. It's incredible for our world, for everybody out there, and possibly you have been living this lifestyle for years and you're like, woo, people are finally catching on, or you're new and you're interested to it. So congrats to you for actually giving it a shot and being here and wanting to educate yourself more and hopefully one day be living this amazing, abundant lifestyle.
I have a big smile on my face right now because, Nick, for us, this journey's been a long journey. It's been a couple decades now since we've been really, trying to figure out how to be a healthy plant-based eater, being athletic and everything. And we've been sharing our knowledge and our information out there. But the fact that it's growing in popularity is making us really, really grateful and excited for what the future holds. And here in Canada, we recently were given a new food guide by the Canadian government. And it's pretty incredible because even the government is encouraging us to eat less animal products, so meat and dairy, reduction of that, and really include and base our diet around plants, like fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. How exciting is that?
It's unbelievable. Not only that, they're also saying that our beverage of choice should be water rather than milk. And they've also encouraged people to connect with their food and to slow down and actually connect with people while they're eating their meals. So there's huge impact that can have. Those little things can have on how we do consume food. So yes, great shift, great movement for Canada.
Yay for Canada. But it's not only in Canada, it's happening all over the place. We have a lot of listeners from the United States. And in the US, in the last 2 years, veganism has grown 600%. 600%. 6% of the US population is now identifying themselves as vegan.
That's unbelievable.
Well, 6%. And you know what, you might think, well, 6% is not really that many, but in a country where there is 350 million people, I believe.
I'm impressed by your facts.
Well, I think I checked it on Google recently. So it works out to be just over 19 million people in the US consider themselves vegan. And that's, when you say that you're a vegan, that's pretty out there. That's pretty strict. I'm sure that there's a lot of plant-based eaters as well, people who are reducing the amounts of meats and dairy.
Or vegetarian. Yes. And I think, not just in the US or in Canada, the UK, I know in the past year, they've been making a lot of shifts, having different festivals that are based around eating vegan, plant-based. So you're starting to see it everywhere.
We recently had a client who sends us a photo. They were visiting the UK and they were sending a photo of double-decker bus. So, the typical idea you have when you visit London is the double-decker, and there's a big advertisement for a vegan lifestyle. And she was so excited for us. She said, look at this, it's everywhere. And it is everywhere. India is another leading country. I know that we have some friends in India, so good for you guys. Amazing.
And recently I saw a headline that South Africa is going to start to do a vegan festival as well. So it is moving across everywhere. And I think too, something we need to mention is how celebrities and people that have more of, we can say, a status and can actually get their voice out there and reach more people, they're speaking up and they're using it in such a positive way. So I'll give an example. Like there's people like Miley Cyrus, and there's so many people like Rich Roll, just to name a few. And Jay-Z and Beyonce recently started the Green Print Project is what it's called. And they're challenging people to go more vegan or vegetarian. And I think you get like lifetime access to all of their shows. So unbelievable incentive for people just to try to shift to more of this lifestyle. So I mean, if you're just sharing your life and who you are deep down, like how these people with this status or these celebrities are doing, really you can do it yourself as well. If you're living this lifestyle already, share it with people around you. You don't need to preach. You don't need to give incentives of any sort, but I think just sharing it and people will catch on. And
yes, and today we are here to really talk about how to do it right, because shifting your lifestyle, no matter what, it's always a challenging journey. In most cases, it's a challenging journey because you're changing your habits and you're changing your patterns. And we've had quite a few people come to us recently asking us how to do it properly, how to do it correctly. And the last 2 years for us have been pretty busy. We dedicated ourselves to writing a book. Hopefully you've heard of it. Maybe you even have the copy, the Vegan Weight Loss Manifesto. We also created an online coaching program. Not that I'm trying to pitch us right over here, but mostly what I'm trying to do is just basically say that there is the need for this type of information. And we realized that we were working with clients one-on-one in a fairly large city of Vancouver here in British Columbia, and we realized that we just could not spread ourselves anymore. Like in our local community, we were working with clients, and we realized that the need is much larger than that. So that's why the book, that's why the online coaching program, and we hope to continue to inspire people through our podcast and now the video podcast as well. So let's get into our episode today. So as I mentioned, I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that changing our lifestyle is not an easy process. And it is a process, it's a journey. It very rarely happens overnight. And I think we need to be aware of it before we jump on board of anything, especially changing our eating habits. And when it comes to being vegan or being plant-based eater, the diet is probably the number one thing you're going to really have to tap in.
Of course.
And a lot of our eating patterns begin from early childhood. We are being fed, like literally fed, not just the food, but also the information about food and what we need to eat in order to be healthy and to thrive. And a lot of the times the information we are maybe finding out today is not the most accurate information, but changing it is really, really tough.
I think you can speak to this of like obviously growing up in Europe. And the typical diet there is completely different to how you're living, and just having to speak up and to stand true to that lifestyle for yourself. And so how would you do it? We know that it's hard. We know we need to be gentle, obviously, with ourselves, and we need to stay true to ourselves. So what's your number one thing that comes to mind of how people can actually do that?
I think the number one thing is to ask yourself why. Why are you doing it? Why do you want to change your lifestyle? Why do you want to go more plant-based? Knowing your why is important for many reasons. The one I think that the main one I can really think about is that it is going to be challenging, and you're going to have days when you might not want to really continue on it. You will be tempted with certain foods. You might be tempted to give it up altogether, but knowing your why are you doing this, will carry you through.
I think with anything in life, we have to understand why we're doing something. Whether we want to start a new job or start a new relationship, I think just looking at things of like, well, why am I doing this? Like, you don't go into things mindlessly, because really, what are you going to get in return? So I think when you have that power of like, I'm doing this for my health, or I'm doing this for the environment, or I'm doing this for the animals out there, my compassion for them, because these are a lot of the biggest reasons why people choose this lifestyle. So I think understanding what your why is and staying true to that. And now it can be hard. I know personally when I first tried anything, I think goal setting or anything like that, I get fixated on trying to make it perfect, or I overthink things and I question things. So I think first and foremost, try not to overthink it. If this is something that you have been thinking about, just sit with it. Why? What was the first initial intuitive thought that came to you of why you really wanted to live more of a lifestyle like this. And if you still are having trouble, then we do have resources that can help you figure this out. We have what's called a mission statement, and it basically breaks it down and gives you some questions that you can answer so you can hopefully narrow down your why and have it there written in front of you, because it's really important too to write these things down and be able to come back to them and identify with that.
I think there's no wrong answer, because as Nick said, don't overthink it. Literally just write whatever comes to your mind. And a lot of the times, the reasons for becoming vegetarian, vegan, or plant-based eater, it will change and it will evolve as you go. Like, I remember that for myself personally, I started to reduce the amount of meat I was eating because of the animals. I was a teenager, and for me, like, seeing these animals suffer was something that I could not possibly be part of any longer. And then later on, it became for the health benefits, because I realized, okay, like, eating more plants, there is health benefits. I started to trim down, I started to look better, I started to feel better. So obviously the health was a big part of it. Lately, it's been environmental, because we live in a world where pollution from food production and from farming and such is obviously quite in our face, and we cannot hide from it any longer. And really, one of the best ways we can contribute to positive change is through what we put on our plates. So environmental is a big one, and athletic performance. You know, more and more athletes are now really admitting that they are eating a plant-based diet. They are no longer ashamed of it. They're actually proud of it, which is amazing.
And there's so much science backing it now, because I think because this is coming forward and the idea of this lifestyle is becoming more of a trend, we can call it, then there's more documents and science and studies coming up and surfacing that really showcases how it can improve our athletic performance. And it's really simple when we break it down. You're eating more nutrient-dense foods, and you're going to get that nutrients right away. So you're going to recover quicker because you are fueling yourself, for one, with higher quality foods.
And why do you want to recover?
So you can train harder and you can train quicker. So your recovery is faster. You can get out there, you can train harder, you can train better.
All right. So now when you find out or figure out what your why is, what is your mission, why do you want to do this, how can you start to transition?
Commit to small daily improvements every single day. So small daily steps.
Good point, because I find that when it comes to changing your diet, often it's a very emotional decision, you know, and we know from experience with working with clients is that they want to do it overnight. It's like one day they are eating cheeseburger and fries and they're thinking in their back of the mind, but tomorrow I'm going to start, I'm going to really eat healthy and I'm going to get on this plant-based thing.
Well, I think anybody out there, we all do it. I'm guilty of doing it. We're looking for that quick fix. We're looking for that instant gratification, that instant change.
Instant. Yes.
Because we're used to it. So we are looking for that. But I think understanding that if you want it to be sustainable and you want this to be a lifestyle, then you need to be gentle with yourself. You need to go through all the ups and the downs, because that is really part of the journey, and that will get you to living this as a lifestyle. I mean, we are here, and like you said, like few decades into this, and there's still so many changes for us, and it's in a different way, of course, but there's still things that we personally work on and change and adapt to. And
I think just understanding that it's really a journey. There's never ending. There's always more. It's like with yoga. I don't know if anybody is into yoga or really any sport. Once you first get started, it seems pretty simple, but then there's always another level and another level. So what is the first level? Where can you get started? Let's get a little bit more specific. And I would suggest, I find that this is probably the easiest way to transition, is slowly cut out meat.
That's exactly what I did, and in the transition of it, I was never really a crazy big red meat eater, so that was pretty easy for me to cut. So red meat, gone. I was still eating poultry and fish, and obviously some dairy and things, but then from there, it was cutting out poultry, and then after that, I was just eating some fish, and I cut the fish out. And I find that transition is really easy, because it's the heavier foods that basically you're cutting out. So red meat is really heavy. It's hard for us to digest compared to a lean fish. So I think our body naturally starts to eliminate those things that are harder for us to
digest
and work through.
When you think about it, like red meat can take up to 48 hours, sometimes even longer to digest, depends how quick your digestive system is, how well it's working for you. Where on the other hand, if you're eating fruit, it takes 30 minutes to digest. So you can imagine the energy it takes to digest heavier foods like red meat. So definitely, Nick, it's a very good point. I think starting with the red meat first and then slowly cutting it out. So once you are good, you're no longer eating meat, then the next thing to move on is to eliminate eggs. For me, that was probably the easiest step. Just because I think I eliminated eggs before I eliminated fish. I never was a big fan of eggs. There's a lot of different ways you can replace eggs with plants in your diet. So not a big deal for me. What about you? How did you find?
I think eggs was one of the things before. It came after cheese and stuff for me, actually. I think eggs and... well, we'll get into the steps, but eggs and I think yogurt were really my last few things to go. I was never a big person on cheese, so that was pretty easy for me to cut out. Which brings us to the next one, cutting out dairy.
Next one. So basically, there is different stages, right? So you're eliminating meat. You still might be eating some, poultry. You're considered pescatarian, right? Once you actually eliminate.
Fish. So you're only eating fish when you're considered pescatarian.
All right.
And then once you cut out any fish and you're still eating dairy and things like that, then you're considered vegetarian. Okay. So those are the stages that you go through. And then once you cut out the whole dairy side of it, that's vegan. And so now we're at the point of how, you get to the point after meat, poultry, eggs. Now it's time to eliminate dairy. So that's, cheese to yogurt, milk. Milk is a big one, I think. A lot of the times we are putting cream into our coffees and such. So that could be a challenging one. And for a lot of people, this tends to be quite a long process. So don't really have a timeline on this. Take it one step at a time. And if you even... one day you put cream in your coffee and the next day you put almond milk in your coffee, be okay with that because it is a slow process. So be gentle with yourself. I find that with dairy, there's a lot of different substitutes these days. You can buy all kinds of nut milks and seed milks. They're also super easy to make at home. Yeah, and I think we're very fortunate here in Vancouver, and I think a lot of other places, like we mentioned, are starting to catch on. So there's more options available around the world. But the vegan versions of cheese, there's a lot more of the healthy ones, I will say, because you can find unhealthy versions. But in Vancouver, we're very fortunate to have companies that create a lot of cheeses that are nut-based and just fermented. So they're properly produced and done.
If there's a time to go plant-based, I think now is the time, because the companies that are coming up with these amazing products, now Nick already said there's also a lot of crappy foods, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in the podcast, but there are options and there are healthy options. So search for them and, go to our website, activevegetarian.com. We try to inform people of these new products, and we also give you a simple recipes on how you can make your own nut milk, like almond milk, hazelnut milk. You can make your own cheese out of the nut pulp, because you're making
the almond pulp.
That's right, you're making your almond milk. You're going to end up with the milk, and the byproduct of it is going to be the pulp, and you can reuse it and make amazing cheese from it. So the options are there.
Even yogurts, we have vegan yogurts on there of how to make them with probiotics and coconuts. So there are always options, and I think that's the biggest thing, is never feel limited when you come to this lifestyle. Don't feel like, okay, I have to cut this out, I'm not going to have this, and think of the lack. I think that's where we have an issue, is that we go into the mindset of like lacking things.
I cannot have.
Yeah.
I'm vegan, I cannot have this, I cannot have that. And, valid point, because now we told you, eliminate meat, eliminate eggs, eliminate dairy. So what can you eat? What is there left to eat?
Whole foods, unprocessed foods is what we always encourage to any of our clients or anybody that we ever encounter or talk to, even on these podcasts. It's really, and if you've been listening to us for years, then you might even see the shift, because maybe in the past we encouraged different products out there, but honestly, over the past few years, even our health and our transition has been completely different. And our main focus is on what's real and what is vibrant, what is alive, and really good quality, nutrient-dense foods. And that's
what we are about. So eat whole foods, unprocessed fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, some whole grains, some starchy carbohydrates like potatoes, sweet potatoes, and winter squashes are a wonderful way too. But majority of your plate should be basically raw, unprocessed fruits and vegetables, because that's where you're gonna get the nutrients from. And some people can jump to this step right away. They basically skip all the ones we just mentioned, the whole meat gone, dairy gone, eggs gone, and they go directly one day to another. And I think those are a lot of the times people who have some health challenges and they're maybe faced with a serious health concerns, and they're saying, okay, I need to do something very drastic. So definitely you can make that switch overnight. It's possible.
I think even your personality, if somebody has a personality like all or nothing, or like, they're challenged in some sort of way, then they'll do it. If they're competitive, they'll just do it. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. I think really summing it up is to be gentle with yourself and understand that this is a journey, and that no matter where you're at, even if you're experimenting with this lifestyle because it is a trend right now, awesome, congrats, good for you. We hope that you see the incredible benefits that it can bring to your life and you continue on it, but don't be hard if, then you have a meal that is not plant-based and then you come back to being plant-based. That's part of all the journey, and we really want to emphasize that, and just to be really kind and gentle with who you are and yourself, and go back to your why.
Can be challenging when you think about it, what the typical North American person eats. It's called the SAD. It's kind of sad, but the standard American diet, right? And if you're eating a lot of processed foods and all of a sudden the next day you're eating kale salad, it could be a little bit challenging to get used to the taste, the texture, the flavor. So one step at a time is usually the best way to go.
Or men out there. I think, I'm not dissing men in any way, but I think, you could look at a meal and think like, what am I even eating here? There's not much here. So that's another point to make, is that when you are eating more plant-based, you need to eat a lot, a lot of good quality foods, but you will eat more. It takes time too to get used to that. It took me a really long time to understand, like, I'm eating a salad and it's like the size of a bowl you would serve to a family, but that's my one meal. And just, understand that you need more food in order to supply yourself with
That's
the
nutrients. Beautiful thing, Nick, though. I think it's about abundance, right? It's a little bit of a change of mindset for sure, because I think when it comes to diets, we often think about limiting ourselves. We don't really think about the abundance. It's like, you see a person dieting and they have like this little plate and there's 2 pieces of carrots and like 5 peas, and then they have a fork and knife and they're trying to like enjoy it or pretend that they're enjoying it. That's really not what the plant-based lifestyle is about. It's actually about having a huge bowl of salad and totally enjoying it, and that's really how you're going to thrive.
So we've talked about how you can start and all the steps that you can take. Meatless Monday is another thing to start to introduce too, which we didn't mention, but if you want to start to eliminate meat, Meatless Monday is an incredible thing. You start with one night a week, Mondays, and then start to build it from there. Maybe it's 3 nights a week and just go from there. But after all of these steps of eliminating and getting to that point, then Kitchen Makeover.
Kitchen Makeover. I'm almost thinking like the Kitchen Makeover goes hand in hand with changing the whole diet, because some of these steps we are giving you are really correlating and they can overlap really nicely as well. Just because, we suggest that you start with eliminating meat doesn't mean that you cannot at that same time get rid of the eggs in your diet as well. You do not have to do it in these exact steps. And I think when it comes to the kitchen makeover, I think that's something that almost has to be implemented right away. When we work with our coaching clients, we say that the first thing to do is to really start with your kitchen. Because if you visit any healthy plant-based eater, you will find that their kitchen is where they're going to spend quite a bit of time. And their kitchen is like a little sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good things can happen in the kitchen. And if you stay surrounded by those unhealthy foods, you're going to be tempted. Let's face it. They've been in your life for years. Sometimes they've been in your life for majority of your life. Mm-hmm. So if it's somewhere in your possession, whether it's in the pantry or in the fridge, or it's in your car or in your office or in your purse, it's going to be tempting. And it's either you or somebody you love is going to eventually eat it.
So if you need some help to clear out your kitchen and understand what you should do, what you should really get rid of, and what you should keep, then we do have a full podcast episode, number 60, as well as an article on our website, activevegetarian.com. Check it out and follow that. If that's the first step you want to make, that's great. If it's just something you want to do, then just do that anyways.
All right, so we made some changes in our kitchen. We cleaned that up. Now we're most likely going to be dealing with some social challenges. What do we mean by social challenges?
Well, co-workers, friends, family, I think is huge. Just, well, why are you doing this? People are going to ask you why, or they're going to try to encourage you. I like what you call it, is the food pushers. They're going to say, oh, just this one time. And that might happen in those moments where you really are trying to stay true to yourself, and somebody might try to pull you in to eat however they're eating. And if you are in a vulnerable state, it could be challenging. It could be really hard to say no and to not get pulled back into this lifestyle maybe.
It's tough. I don't doubt it, especially if you're the only person in the family, or if you're in a relationship and you are the one making that choice and your partner is not. You have to be a strong person in order to be able to sustain it. There's no doubt about it. And once again, we do have a podcast about it. We have a full episode basically advising you on how you can deal with these challenges. But I think the number one thing we want to really say is stay true to yourself, educate yourself, because that's important. Mm-hmm. That's actually our next step, is to learn as much as you possibly can and come from a place of love.
Yes.
I think we often get defensive, especially when it comes to our food and our diet. It is a very personal thing. Mm-hmm. It's almost even more personal than politics. Like, people often don't want to really talk about who they're going to vote for. But if you ask them about their food choices, that's even more taboo.
It's very sensitive. Yeah, of course. I think coming back to your why, knowing your why, and like you said, and we'll talk about a little bit more about educating yourself so you can answer those questions of people that will give you the standard questions of living this lifestyle. Where do you get your protein? Where do you get your iron? Are you getting enough of this? And just being able to answer those things, not again getting defensive and preaching it, being able to educate others on it. That is a way of sharing and maybe influencing other people to start to make different choices in their lifestyle. And one other thing, when you talked about being compassionate, and I think not getting defensive, one thing about that is, I think coming from a sense of compassion, of looking at maybe where the other person is. So if somebody is a food pusher or trying to encourage you to eat a certain way, or maybe you hear remarks of like, oh, what is that you're eating? And then they make these little jokes and comments. Come from a place of maybe understanding that they're not in a good place, that they're maybe envious of where you're at and the choices you're making, and they would like to have that motivation and that influence and be able to do that or make changes themselves in their life, and they're not doing it. So they could be looking at you from that state. And obviously, if somebody's not in a good place, making fun of somebody else or commenting on somebody else, it gives us that instant sense of release and satisfaction, which does not last. So I think if you can step back and be compassionate in that way, don't react, just respond with, this is my choice, and that's all. So I think just thinking of those things, not getting defensive and really not reacting Just being educated and responding.
Yeah, good
Coming
one,
from
good
a
one.
place of love.
Like that.
Peace.
So, to expand on it, the next step would be to learn as much as you can. Because there is a lot of power in knowing why you're doing certain things. So learn about it. Amazing resources out there these days. There is documentaries, and we have a list of documentaries on our website that some of them are even free documentaries.
Yes.
You can easily access on
Netflix
YouTube.
has an abundant amount of documentaries now supporting this. So that's another great resource.
I find that the documentaries really help, especially at the beginning stages of the transition, because it really supports your decision to carry on with this. So when you're having maybe a weak moment, that's your time to really, that's your cue to either pick up a book. We have some really good recommendations. I think on the shelf here, we even have some, like How Not to Die is a really good book.
Yeah, that's true.
Read that, reach there. All right, so How Not to Die from Dr. Greger. It could be a little bit intimidating. It's a fairly thick book, but at the same time, it's a fairly easy read as well. So books like these are very helpful. Documentaries, there's tons of blogs these days that you can really connect with. Just be careful, I guess, who you are listening to.
I wanted to say one thing. If there is some sort of topic or resource specifically that you want to learn more about, then please leave it in the comments below if you're watching this video, or reach out to us and send us a message on our social media or email us and just ask us. Maybe we do know somebody that we can help you and guide you towards that can help you in that area. But I think coming back to what you were saying, it is very, very, I'll say saturated, but in a good way, in a positive way. But there's so much information out there. It could be, I think, overwhelming, confusing, for sure, and contradicting at times. So how do you know how to trust and to know who to follow or what to listen to or what to feed yourself? How do you know it's the right source? How do you know it's good, valuable information that is real? I'll put real in quotes.
Real in quotes. I think it depends on what stage of the journey you're on. Because you can click with somebody today, and maybe 2 months down the road, they might not make any sense to you anymore, or especially a few years down the road. Like I remember coming across some videos at the beginning stages, not even beginning stages, but even like 8-10 years ago, I would watch few people on YouTube and I would be like, oh my god, they're totally crazy, they're out of this world, I think they took this whole idea too far. And today I connect with them and I'm like, oh wow, what an amazing information, I'm loving it, you know what I mean? So I think you have to really be connected with where you are on this journey and just kind of listen to it. I feel that a lot of the times I've been taught by you to connect with intuition, which definitely helps. Do you want to maybe expand on that a little bit?
You know, you're more of the logical type of person, and I am more of the, oh, this looks pretty, and I'm more of the sensitive kind of spiritual, I guess you could put it, which we balance each other really well.
For sure.
So when it does come to it, I do see if I am like having that connection with the person. When they're speaking, do I really connect with what it is that they're saying? Does it really get to me? And I think just, do I believe in what they're saying? So is it something that's going to work for me? And I think that's just it. It's you need to find what's going to work for you, and you can't base it on what's popular or what other people are doing. I think the best thing with anything, with food choices, anything you're doing in your life, is to connect with yourself and then listen to yourself, listen to what it is your body needs. And I think it can come down to a simple thing, like when you are making dinner, and if you're making it for you and your family, or for you and your spouse or partner, you might be eating something completely different that meal. Like, it just comes down to the point of like listening to what it is that you need and really fine-tuning that, working on that, and staying true to it. Because often I think we do things based on other people, of what we think other people want, what we think other people, how they'll view us. So we might not be feeding our souls and feeding ourselves because we're not doing that. I'm going into a whole other realm of like,
that's all good,
how I choose to watch or listen to whoever or read whatever books I read. But I think it comes down to really just can you connect with that? Can you connect with the words? And there's times where you could read a book and it just doesn't speak, and you put it aside, and maybe months down the road, that book comes to you again and it really clicks. I think it's just about the timing and just trusting that the information, the people, the things will come to you. And
At the right time.
Yeah, and I believe in those signs. So sometimes if a YouTube video pops up or I get an email and it's about something, I'm like, maybe I'm supposed to see this. Maybe I'm supposed to listen to it.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the real world if I can. No, I love it. I love it, Nick. I just want to say one thing, I guess, on this topic, and that's when you're listening to somebody or asking somebody for advice or choose to follow somebody, look at them and ask yourself, does the person have what it is that I'm after? You know, when it comes to health and well-being, I think often it is a very material stuff, and I think we can see it. It's almost like, I would say tangible. Can you say it this way? So if I want vibrant health or I want good athletic performance.
Or like plant-based muscles.
Plant-based muscles, exactly.
If you're watching, then you could see ours that we're flexing.
And the person on the video is not really reflecting that. Maybe they are the exact opposite. Then I will have to question that.
Yeah.
You know, what they're saying is either not correct or they are not applying it. And why are they not applying it if they are preaching it, if that makes sense? You know, if I'm a bald guy and I want to have beautiful, wavy, long hair, I'm not gonna listen to Dr. Phil for hair advice.
Ouch.
But you know what I mean? Like, I just want to put it into perspective. I don't mean it in any bad way.
Sorry, Dr. Phil.
Or my dad. He's totally bald. I'm not gonna, if I want long, beautiful hair, I'm not gonna ask my dad for how to grow it.
He kind of looks like Dr. Phil.
He totally does. He totally does. But you know what I'm saying? So I think it's important to make sure that that person reflects what it is that you are after. That's it. That's all I have.
So to sum everything up that we have been rambling about, so thank you for listening, and hopefully you haven't tuned out, but
we are not done yet. It's not over. It's not over until it's over.
It's just getting started here.
Okay.
Just be true to you. Be gentle with yourself. Listen to what it is that you need and connect with what it is that's around you at that time that you feel is coming to you for a certain reason, and be open. I think be open to the possibilities and to educating yourself, like we said. And I think even if you're listening to this and you're just starting this lifestyle or just curious about it, then education again is huge. I think that's the most powerful thing you can do, and that's really what had me choose to start to eliminate meat and dairy and everything. And it was the stages of the education I was feeding myself. It started with books where I got rid of meat, and then I read the China study, and dairy was gone right after reading that. So I think knowledge is powerful. So definitely educate yourself, be gentle with yourself, and listen to yourself.
Yes, and I'm gonna say it from a personal experience. Don't be your own drill sergeant. I did it for years. It doesn't work. Like, just getting upset with yourself and saying, okay, I messed up and I need to really get it right this time. It doesn't work. So, you know, Nick says be gentle, be kind.
We're not perfect. And I think this can come back to moments where we can start to work through things of ourselves. And from that, I mean, when we talk about things being rooted from our childhood, that might come up, whereas if you, what we could say is air quotes, fail at making a food choice you wanted to make, you could be really hard on yourself. And maybe it's because when you were brought up, there wasn't much encouragement. Maybe there was a lot of like, why were you doing that? And, you know, questioning, or you know, getting in trouble for certain things where it really was not that wrong. And I think those things carry through with us. So I think understanding where that's coming from and where that self-talk is coming from, and watching your thoughts, watching how you are speaking to yourself, being kind to yourself, is extremely important on this journey.
After all, it is a lifestyle change. You know, those habits did not develop overnight. They've been with you for a long period of time, and we cannot change our habits overnight either. We need to give ourselves time. And it's again lifestyle. You know, we think of being vegan or being plant-based eater only as the diet. It relates only to the diet, but it goes way beyond that. It starts with the plate. It starts with the palate. Once you change your palate, a lot of things are going to change in your life, and it's an incredible journey. I don't even begin to tell you just how amazing it has been. It has opened our eyes and our minds to all kinds of possibilities.
I think even just looking at it from the physical and the mental point, like more clarity, everything, if you want to know, just ask us. We can give you detailed information on what we've experienced on this journey. But one thing I do want to say is don't label yourself. I think that, you know, when we talk about vegan, plant-based, when we talk about vegetarian, all these different things, like, you know, there's so many other diets like paleo, keto. Don't label yourself, because we're already categorizing ourselves. And I know as human beings, we like to be categorized in some sort of way. But really, I think this gives us that sense of lack once again. We go into this mindset of like, you're in this narrow path and this is where you are, rather than, you know, being open and seeing things along the way. So try not to label yourself and who you are. Be you.
Some additional quick tips to help you transition to plant-based lifestyle. Number one, always be prepared.
Big one. And what we mean by this is when you're on the go, I guess it can be other things, but first we'll talk about when you're on the go, take something with you. Be prepared in that sense. Have some snacks in your bag, in your car. Be prepared, because you never know if you're out on the run, if there's going to be options available for you. And we do offer, we've said it in many podcasts before, tips on how to find those options. Like grocery stores are the first go-to stop. If we're out and we didn't bring something with us and we're not prepared, head there, go to the produce section, grab some fruit. You can find these options. But I think being prepared when you're on the go, as well as social events. I think, you know, if you're going to a party of some sort, especially when it's around the holidays, take something with you so you are guaranteed that you will have something to eat while you're there. So being prepared.
Number two would be keep it simple. Honestly, Nikki was saying, you know, it's just as simple as going to the grocery store and grabbing a banana or grabbing an apple. Plant-based lifestyle, plant-based diet is not complicated. It's not tricky. It's not some kind of hippie food that is weird and you won't be able to find it anywhere. It's actually pretty simple, because all you're eating is whole, unprocessed, plant-based foods. So there's always a place to grab fruit, like even Starbucks these days.
Bananas, at least they have, for sure.
If you are really hungry, eat 3-4 bananas. It's much better than grabbing some kind of quick sandwich on the go. You're gonna get more nutrients out of it. So don't overthink it, because when it comes to nutrients, you're gonna get the most out of fresh stuff. Does it make sense?
I think keeping it simple, we tend to overcomplicate things as humans. And I think keeping it simple when you're on the go, or even some meals at home when time is not available to you. However, you can make things more interesting on the nights and the time that you do have to create more complex meals and experiment and get creative in that sense. We're not saying that it doesn't get to that point. But
in other words, we can create a quick dinner in 15 minutes, honestly. And it's a beautiful array of fresh stuff. 15 minutes if we are really short on time. Yes.
And on it.
And sure, we also spend 2 hours in the kitchen creating a meal, but that's something that we really enjoy, and that's how we choose to spend the time. But other than that, keep it simple. The next thing is to read labels. We always suggest that actually everything, or majority of the things you buy, does not even come with a label. Like, again, I'm going to go back to the banana or apple or kale. It obviously doesn't come with a label unless it's packaged.
Just a sticker.
Just a sticker. But if you are going to use or buy something that has a label, read the label, because many times they can sneak ingredients in foods that is not vegan. And I don't know how strict you want to go with it, but you know, there's foods that contain gelatin or rennet or any other animal byproducts. So if you want to truly be a strict vegan, then reading labels for that reason is important. Also reading labels for the reason that there's a lot of processed stuff out there, and that's really the next step we are going to.
I think that's a big thing to start to look at for your personal health, is the additives, the coloring, the natural flavors, things like that. It doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to have these things added into your food. And what we were saying is how, if you've been listening to us for a long time, then you might recognize that right now when we're talking about this, our lifestyle has shifted a lot, because before we would recommend and suggest eating some of these diet cheeses like years and years ago when it first came out. This is great. We were all about that, as well as some tofus and things like that. And now our mindset has shifted so much that why do we really need it? We've lived a lifestyle for years now without having those things in our life, and we realize that we don't need it. We don't need these things because they do have a lot of the time additives and different things included in them that our body doesn't know what to do with it. It's really toxic to our body, so we choose not to include those into our life. So we do encourage other people to look at things that way, but we do also understand that
this is a transitional phase, right? And that's the whole thing with the whole vegan versus plant-based. Because what is the difference? Well, there's a lot of similarities. Vegans and plant-based eaters avoid obviously animal products, or plant-based eaters drastically can reduce them. But just because something is vegan doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. You were saying like the cheeses that we used to eat, or a lot of processed vegan foods, especially now with all these companies coming up with different ideas of different products that substitute the typical meat products. And then when you look at the label, it goes hand in hand with reading label. You're realizing, oh my gosh, half of the ingredients I don't even know what they are. The second half I cannot pronounce. What the heck? Obviously that's not healthy for you, right?
No. And if you are a new listener or a new viewer to this podcast, then please go to our site, activevegetarian.com, because we have old episodes on reading labels and what you should look for and what you should try to avoid. And we go into more detail than this, but that brings us to the whole fake meat and all of these things that are being introduced because plant-based eating is becoming more and more popular. So yes, companies are getting on board. Now, I think it's about identifying which company you want to relate to. And again, if it's part of your transition, that's great. We're not judging you by any means. We just encourage you that at some point in your life, you are not relying solely on these foods. So if you're using them for once in a while to replace certain things, that's fine. But don't solely rely your diet on them, because it leads to malnutrition. It leads to maybe you possibly saying, well, wait, this isn't working for me, because you're not getting the nutrients that you can get from eating a fully plant-based diet. So it would steer you maybe away from this, or even people around you would look at you and be questioning it, because they're like, well, what's happening? Like, you look pale, and are you getting enough food? Are you getting enough iron? And it comes down to properly doing it, because you need to eat an abundant amount of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole foods, and a variety. So a variety is key. Don't rely on certain things. Change up. Our whole idea is eat in season is the best thing. So you're eating in season, try to eat local as much as possible. And you're always going to get the variety.
True that. I agree with you. So yes, don't rely on the fake meats. Don't rely on them. Use them as a transitional phase and slowly phase out of it. And the next thing is to plan, cook. And you already mentioned variety, but plan and cook. If this lifestyle is really speaking to you, you will have to spend some time in the kitchen. We said keep it simple, so we do not have to overcomplicate your meals. When we created this lovely book, we decided to include about 100 recipes in it. So it is a book that actually takes you through the transitional state, and it's 8 weeks step by step. And a lot of the things we were talking about today, like for example, cleaning up your kitchen and dealing with certain social situation, it's all in there. But the one thing that is in there, definitely included heavily, is these 100 recipes. And some people tell us, well, man, these recipes seem complicated. But truly, a lot of them have on average, about 8 ingredients. So it's not that complicated, But this lifestyle will require you to actually spend some time in the kitchen, because you need to connect with your food. That way you know what's going in there, and not just even the ingredients, but what kind of energy you're putting into your food. That's one thing that actually the Canadian government is suggesting in our new food guide, is to make sure that there is a connection that you're creating with your food. So if you're not a big fan of being in a kitchen, I think this is something that will have to shift as a plant-based eater. Give it a try. It might be a new hobby.
And this time that you're spending in the kitchen, you can make it as enjoyable as you want. Find that time, even if it's something that you don't enjoy, try to find that time to connect with your food, to connect with yourself. And really, that's where the planning comes into play, because it's really important that if you learn to plan your meals where whatever you're eating for dinner, you're going to have it for lunch the next day, or part of that meal can be used in a different meal. You start to learn these patterns of how you're saving time, and you're saving that time in the kitchen of preparing and making all of these meals. And so there's all these little tips and tricks that we try to teach everybody, and we do have, again, these resources. I know we keep going back to it, but this has been 10 plus years in the making that we've been giving information like this. So let's use it. On our site, we have meal prep and how to do it, and really some ideas. It's as simple as sticking to like Buddha bowls for your dinner. So you can change it up by changing the dressing, by changing what's in it. So
changing with the seasons, just as you mentioned, right? Different variety of produce.
So yes, plan and cook is something you're going to have to do, and the variety. And our last point is just do it.
Wow, we have given you a lot of information today, and we said that knowledge is power, but there is actually more to it. You can have all the knowledge, you can have all the information, but if you don't use it, then it's really no good to you, because only applied knowledge is power. So take the knowledge, take the information. We have all the notes in our post on activevegetarian.com, so we suggest that you go back to it and just choose one thing, even one thing. Remember, it's one small step. Small daily improvements will lead to amazing results over time.
A couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, I challenged one of our best friends, Missy. We love you. Shout out to you. I challenged her for the month of November. She was going away with us, and I said, go vegan. I challenged her for that whole month, which November is vegan month, and she did it, and she 3 years later is still eating this way.
Missy!
So
awesome.
If you're one of those types of people, then start a challenge. Challenge yourself. Maybe challenge with your partner. If you both are interested and want to do it and you have that competitive mindset, make it a challenge. Make it fun. Make it interesting. And again, just be gentle. Be kind to yourself no matter what you're doing. And we would love to gift to you, because we have been expressing how powerful we feel that this lifestyle is and what it's done to us and the abundance that it offers. So our gift to you for being here, for listening with us, is to head to our site and try 2 weeks free of our online coaching, because we want you to experience it. And we guarantee that within those 2 weeks, you are going to see some changes. You're going to see some sort of benefit in your life. And even if it's one thing that fills our heart, because we really want you to take away something. We're not asking you to shift completely, but even if it's a matter of you take a piece of advice and you clean out your whole kitchen, and that's one thing you've done, that's great. We're satisfied. That's it. I think, we would love to hear where you're at on this journey. If you are already plant-based, if you're just experimenting with it, just curious about it, please comment below or send us a message, and we would love to hear. We would love to help you out. If you have any questions, please interact with us and utilize this. This is where you can get some knowledge. This is where you can get some support. We are here. We want to help you live a vibrant, healthy life and to help you be a better being.
And one of the first things we said is figure out your why. There is power in the fact that you will share it. So in the comments below, maybe let us know, what is your why? Why did you decide to go on this journey? Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.